Our guest you might know as Gray Pilled. I've done his show Sound Science with another former guest of this show, Paranoid American. Sound Science was awesome. It was one of my most favorite shows that I've done. I got to talk about music for a very long time, which I very rarely get to do. But you can find that on Rumble. We had a blast. So check that out. But let's bring in Gray Pilled. Sir, how are you?
What's going on, man? Thank y'all for having me.
Yeah, man. It's a pleasure.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Like I was saying, I had such a blast on Sound Pilled. Such a fun show. I love it. I hope everyone checks it out. Not everyone's talking about music like that these days. So
No, and I think me and you had some pretty good conversations about a lot of music that we kind of came up listening to.
Yeah.
You know, in like the same, like very small niche type of music.
I was shocked because you don't always meet people who know that sphere of music. It's very niche. Not everyone knows like that small hardcore scene. Yep,
definitely,
boom.
man.
So, and you were a drummer, right?
Yes, I have been playing for over 20 years now.
That's incredible. That's incredible. Yeah, I love that. That is the music that is nearest and dearest to my heart. So anytime I get to talk about it, and for those who don't know, Sound Science, they allow their guests to basically talk about 5 albums that are important to them, and we run through like 2 or 3 songs per album, and such a fun time. So thanks again for that, dude. So let's get into this. Right before we were going live, Alex here was like, I like that name, Gray Pilled. We hear a lot about different pills these days. Tell the people, what is Gray Pill?
Well, I've explained it a few times, and I've had people tell me their own kind of interpretations of it, but essentially, like, we're fed nothing but black pills daily, especially now. You know what I mean? Like it's hard to stay positive about anything, but you don't want to be too, I guess, naive or too, like, you know, just ignoring everything happening. And just, I mean, you could say that that may be the better thing to do, but I coined the term gray pilled, I guess about 2 years ago. It was just kind of where I was and how I felt at the time. You know, like I can't lose hope, right? But you know, out of all this stuff that's going on around us, all the lies that we're being fed, which you know, if you're paying attention, I think it's kind of hard for these lies to get past us now, especially with Twitter, and you know, people are starting to wake up to a lot of things that we weren't really given the chance to wake up to some years ago, right? So taking the gray pill is basically accepting the reality around us, knowing that, you know, we're on a path to destruction, right? But knowing that there is hope.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. I can relate to that. I mean, I believe you're a parent as well, right? And you kind of have to be like, it's a realist point of view to have that gray pill outlook, because you're understanding, like, I got to teach these kids how crazy and terrible this world is, while also making sure they have a foundation of hope as they inherit this world. And that's, I think, a lot of black pill types, a lot of them I've experienced at least, don't have kids. So like, it's easier to be totally black pilled and hopeless if you have nothing, you know, no children to raise and instill optimism in.
Oh yeah, man. And I think that is one of those black pills being fed to us. Is like, enjoy your life. Don't worry about, like, you know, passing down your heritage and your genetics, and, you know, having a bloodline or anything. Just go and have fun, and you know, one day you'll die.
Yeah.
You know.
Yay.
And so like, that's something that is really fed to us now. And I try to I have an 11-year-old and a 3-year-old, so I kind of have like 2 different types of attitudes being thrown at me right now, you know.
I know how it goes.
Yeah,
how it goes. It's great.
Good though. It's good. It helps you grow as a man.
Yeah, I think it's important. You know, a lot of people, it's crazy to meet a lot of people our age who decided to just not have kids. You know, some people just don't want to do it, and I get it. But I think it changes you for the better, and you have to, like, kind of re-experience your own childhood now, and kind of judge all the ways that you were wrong and right, and the way you were raised. And then you know, as we get older, like you and I, we care a lot about a lot of strange truths of the world behind like the curtain of the false reality we're in. And you're like, my kids are going to know about a lot of this stuff. And you got to kind of gauge when's appropriate for some of these things to be told to children, obviously. But it's important because a lot of the stuff that a lot of the ideology today, it seeps into the children so easily because a lot of parents outsource all their education to everyone else but the parent. And that's how they get, how they buy into that fake world. Right. So yeah, it's wild. Like, have you had to have discussions with like the 11-year-old about certain weird aspects of reality yet? Have you gotten there?
Social media.
Yeah. Me and my wife had him when we were both like 20, 21. We weren't as grounded in our life. I was kind of crazy, so having him kind of put me in check. But he learned a lot of things at a young age, just coming to us and asking us questions. And I felt like I just never really needed to lie to him.
Yeah.
Because he's going to figure it out anyway. He's going to figure it out from some kid at school or some YouTube video. So why not just be like honest with him, if it's appropriate, like you said. But surprisingly, or I guess not so surprisingly, kids his age are learning things that I had no clue about when I was 11.
Right. Yeah, they're inundated with everything. So it's like it's a lot of bad stuff out there that they're getting a hold of, but also a lot of like truths that they're getting a hold of that I was not a privy to at all at 11.
Yeah, and I've seen that my son questions everything just like me.
Perfect.
I think I've passed that to him as well. And I question things that make me uncomfortable.
Oh yeah, I think that's part of it. You kind of have to. That's some of the most important stuff to question. I realized so our oldest is 8, and I was like when he was really young, but just learning to talk, I thought, man, like one of the most important things for kids is to learn how to just be a good observer, like of your surroundings. Cause I'm not telling him at that age cause everyone's full of it, and you're being lied to constantly, but you need to like really be good at discerning and observing. And you have to know that from a young age. Cause in this world we're in now with this constant delusion or deluge of information, I'm like, I can't imagine what they're going to be like in 10, 20 years now.
Yeah,
when the satellites are beaming information.
There's no telling.
No, that's crazy.
There's no telling. I couldn't imagine being a kid right now.
Right.
Everything coming out so fast, and because like it's definitely not how it was at all whenever we were younger. I think you're a little bit older than me, but all my friends were probably your age when I was like 13. As far as like our age gap.
Yep.
But yeah, man, no, it's good to have any kind of discernment, especially spiritual discernment, man, because what I've figured out is a lot of this stuff is being way kind of fought, I guess you could say, in other realms. What's happening right now in our culture, it's a spiritual battle.
100%. When did you realize that? Were you raised that way, or is there something that happened to you throughout life where you're like, oh wow, this is much crazier than the material world I'm experiencing?
Well, after I had an opiate addiction back in my early 20s, and I got through that. Was a follower, I'm a follower of Christ, but I kind of found my definition of Christ from like going through dark night of the soul so many times, like putting myself through so much pain and finding light at the end of the tunnel. And, I think that's important as well. If you're going to dive into some of this stuff, you go down very, very dark rabbit holes, man. And you go around some even darker corners.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important to be aligned with what people would call the Holy Spirit. Some people refer to it and people get into arguments about it all the time, of Christ consciousness and all that stuff. I think it's an energy that you align with,
Yep.
And I kind of started learning about that we have been lied to about a lot of things, and then learning the truth behind some of it, you start to want to dive in a little deeper. And so at first, you get into conspiracies, and you got these tiers of conspiracies that you kind of go through, but then you start to you go to, all right, well, these people are worshiping dark energy, lesser deities. Who are they worshiping?
Mm-hmm.
You
Yep.
know? And that takes you down a complete different path right there.
Was
When you,
there like a book that you came across early on, or like that showed you some of this stuff when it comes to like what we're about to get into, like the ancient deity stuff, or like how did you
um,
get fall down that
well,
one?
yeah, man, I listen to a lot of Coast to Coast.
Nice.
Um, Lawrence Gardner, uh, Zachariah Sitchin, but and people will say that Sitchin's full of shit and this and that, and you got to take some of it with a grain of salt, but I
Hmm.
think those base stories are important to understand if you want to understand them deeper.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The symbolism behind them. How they play into other cultures, these same stories that you see. And so you're like, okay, well, I mean, if this guy's lying, or all these other cultures and their ancient tales and their mythologies a lie as well,